Hello and welcome to the Wedding Dish Podcast. Grab your fork and knife and take a seat at our table as we dish on all things weddings. You'll hear stories and tips from real couples and wedding pros about love, life, and entrepreneurship. I am Sarah Alapin, host of The Wedding Dish and CEO of Photos from the Hardy and District Bliss. And I am really excited about today's episode, everybody. This is going to be such a blast. Today, we're talking with a photographer and coach based out of New York City. With over 13 years of experience in the wedding industry and photographing luxury, travel, and hospitality, he is an expert in capturing bright, cinematic lifestyle imagery. Thank you for being here, the human behind Phillipvn photography, Phillipvn Nostrand. Thank you for joining us on the Wedding Dish.
Nice job. Thank you.
Thank you. No one congratulates me on my openings.
That was great. It's funny hearing my bio over and over again. I think I need to make the words, sometimes I feel like I need to make the words flow better because I can tell how people read it.
Well, it's different when it's on your website versus like being
saying
read out loud.
Yeah.
And also I always read it backwards. So like, and this is a weird thing that I learned from like introducing people on stage, but you're supposed to do the intro where it's the bio and then the last thing you say is the name of the person because you want that to be what people remember.
I like that.
Yeah,
Good job.
Thank you.
I learned something new. I really like that. That makes sense.
Thank you. I am so excited to dish with you today. You know that this is a topic that I'm super passionate about, and it's something that I absolutely love that you do, and you do so well. So are you ready to dish?
Yes.
All right. Today we are dishing about destination wedding photography. And I think, first of all, let's start with the basics. What is destination wedding photography?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it would be anytime a client brings a photographer outside of the photographer's hometown. I think a lot of people imagine destination wedding photography as like going to the Bahamas or Costa Rica or, Europe or something. But it's also, I live in New York. I just did a wedding in Vail this past Saturday. And so I was a destination wedding photographer. And the bride was actually like walking around being like, this is my photographer from New York. And people are like, you flew in from New York. Crazy. And so there was this like little brag that she got to have this like New York photographer out in Vail shooting for her.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it could even be I'm based in DC, you coming down from New York, which is like a 4-hour train ride.
Yeah.
And
still a destination because there's like travel logistics are involved. Yeah.
Yes. I love it. Okay, cool. And it also means that maybe you haven't been there before. So as a photographer, how do you plan for a wedding in a destination where maybe you've never visited the location?
Yeah, I did. I want to say I had like 3 or 4 weddings this year. I was in. This sounds like a brag, but it's fun. I was in Milan for a wedding. I was in Mauritius, which is a small like African nation. I was in Philadelphia at a new place, and I was also in Northern California, like Napa area. All places I'd never ever shot before, and I think I love to be in new places. But my first answer is that I always go to these places like at least a day early, if not 2 days early. Usually, I'm never going to arrive on the day of the wedding, but if I'm in Mauritius, I was with like the wedding party for like 4 days before the actual wedding happened. And when I was in Milan, I came out 2 days early and was like in the city and kind of with the couple for a few days. So I'm always able to like kind of check out the spaces that we're going to be in for a little bit. But I want to say that I think what makes good wedding photographers unique is that our whole job is to be like a professional reactor. So all we do is react to new situations, right? Like our best ability is to improvise in settings, and it's the opposite of like a fashion photographer, which sort of creates a controlled set and like needs to have everything like locked in. But we are the best at like adapting to new situations and environments and lighting. And I think that's what makes a wedding photographer almost like more capable than maybe the more glamorous like editorial photographers or portrait photographers you see out there, because we're like, oh, it's really dark, or the the sun is changing or it's raining or whatever, but we can work with that. And so I think being in a new location is more inspiring than anything, because I can go into a room and immediately see like 4 or 5 spots that I want to shoot, and I don't have to have ever seen it before to know like what I'm going to do in the next 10 minutes. Does that make sense?
I totally agree. And I think that that actually brings up an interesting point, too. There are a lot of times where we haven't photographed at a venue just because we live in that city has nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
So it's a
Yeah,
very
it's a hard, I mean, it's a hard thing to break in people's minds. Like I think people want a safe bet or whatever, and so they like to hire someone who's done the same, been there before. But I think at the end of the day, that's like a it can be a little bit of a handicap for anyone who's like, if I'm shooting at the same place like 20 times a year, it's going to be really hard for me to break from my patterns of like where I've shot or what works best. We've all seen it when we walk into a venue, and the venue tells us like, oh, everyone does the first look over here by the barn, or like,
yeah.
or this is where we do. And whenever someone tells me that, I'm like, I don't want to do that. Like I don't want the picture that everybody else gets. I want something that's like completely unique. And I'd rather not see photos of the space beforehand sometimes, because I don't want to be like swept into like the same look. That's
Yeah.
my personal take. Yeah.
Yeah, it unfortunately, it can kind of stifle your creativity a little bit because you're like, "Oh, well, this is the easy way out." But the easy way out isn't always the best, and it's not always
No.
representative of the couple because,
Yeah.
just because they chose that venue, they may not have chosen that venue because they like that barn or whatever that most people do
Yeah.
the first look in
It's
front of, or
just
like the
yeah.
bridge, the pedestrian bridge
No, it
that
shouldn't be like a one size fits all. I'd rather be like, yeah, I think the best photographers I know are like looking really outside of the box for stuff.
yeah,
Um,
it makes it more fun, and, like, I don't want my whole portfolio to look the same.
no, not at all. So I don't know. I like, I'll show up to a space a little bit early if I'm really uncertain of things, or they want to do a first look and I need to figure out where it's going to be. But or like portrait sessions. Like I'm not just gonna like figure it out on the spot. Like I'll definitely have like been at the space earlier that day or the day before. But yeah, but I like to be new to a space. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, I agree. I think that makes a lot of sense. I love that, and also Mauritius, I've heard, has really good scuba diving.
They do. I'm not a scuba diver, but we did get in the water a little bit. We did a little catamaran tour along next to dolphins, which was amazing. Yeah,
Fun, I love
yeah,
it. I wanna hear about that at some point.
yeah.
Okay, so what are some of the reasons that couples might consider hiring a destination wedding photographer as opposed to someone who might be, like, associated with that location or that venue?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of just talked about some of the main reasons is that if you hire like a local island photographer at your Cancun wedding, you're going to get like a very cookie cutter sort of results, which may be what you want, and the price will be kind of lower if you go local. But if you're hiring someone from out of town, you're going to get something that might be yeah, a little more custom and high end experience, and someone who like understands psychology and charming your family and making people feel relaxed and getting something new and different in a space that you wouldn't normally get. The other reason why you might bring someone from outside is because you like I think a couple getting married in Italy, a couple from New York getting married in Italy would might want a New York photographer more than they want an Italian photographer, because a New York photographer understands how Americans work, how they think, how customs go, like little funny thing, you know what I mean? Dynamics between family that
Yeah.
might be totally different if you're working with a local, and you want someone who understands like what it's like to be a New Yorker and the pay, like all of that stuff. And so you get to bring someone who gets you a little bit more, which is nice on a wedding day. It really helps
Yeah.
smooth out a lot of things that you wouldn't think of.
And also someone maybe that you've met before. Like if it's a New York couple and they've gotten a chance to meet you in real life. I mean, of course you can meet people on Zoom now, all the digital places to meet
Sure.
people, but I think there is value in having the option to meet you too, because you have a very distinct personality that's just like such a warm heart that makes like
Mm,
you immediately put people at ease and
yeah,
you get very excited about things. So I would imagine that like there's value in that, like knowing, okay, this is someone I do want to be there for 4 days surrounding my
sure.
wedding and come on the catamaran tour, not just like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think like too, this happens in like the celebrity realm as well. Like you'll get, if you've seen, I don't know, Justin Bieber's wedding, like I know Jose Villa shot the wedding, but Hailey Bieber also had her favorite fashion photographer there that she brought. And so there's this idea that like a couple will bring a photographer because they love that look that they get, and it's not gonna, it might not be the person who's local. Like if you have access to every photographer in the world, then you kind of get to choose, and they all travel, then you really get to choose like your favorite, whatever you like, right? Like you want it to make sense for you, not just what's like most convenient or easy. Maybe, I mean, assuming you have the budget for it, that's like the real question.
Yeah, that's a good point too.
And I don't know, are you going to ask me questions about budget or travel costs and stuff? Because I think that's an interesting.
Yeah, let's talk about it if you're comfortable with that.
Yeah, 1,000%. I mean, I think like I think photographers do it two different ways, and I'm not sure where you're at with this, but I think some photographers just sort of like for me, I absorb the cost of travel. Usually, if I'm traveling like in Philly, or I had this wedding in Vail, and I'm literally like almost best friends with the wedding planner, so I stayed in her spare room, so I didn't need to find a hotel for 2 days. Round trip tickets from New York to Denver are like $300, and so I'm not going to like do an extra line item that's like $300 for me. It's easier just to like wrap it into my whole total cost and say travel's free, because I want to compete a little bit locally, and I don't want, in my mind, I don't want there to be any speed bumps for the client as they're like thinking of hiring me. And if I can remove that like seed of doubt about like what might it cost to bring two photographers out on planes and hotels and cars and stuff, then like I'll eat it. And it might be $1,000 or $2,000 out of my pocket, and I'm happy to like take that. And I'm charging enough. That was like a $16,000 wedding. I'm charging enough that like I'll still be able to take home a decent chunk of change and feel good about it. And I also know that some photographers disagree with that completely and think it's really important that you, and this might be a very higher end like travel destination photography, that it will be like a very decent line item. And there's some photographers that are charging like $50,000 for this, and an extra $5,000 or $8,000 for travel is like standard. So
I think either way, you're kind of going to end up around the same spot because like you have to, as a photographer, and you kind of just said this, where you mentally bake it in so that
sure.
you're covering it, but you're not giving them like I hate having to send an invoice after the wedding day. Like there's
Yeah.
nothing worse
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you've already paid everything. And like the work, like I expect to be paid by the wedding day.
Yeah. 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 I,
And
I guess
honestly,
you can average it out though too, right? Like
yeah.
the flight should be around $500, the hotel should be around 1,000, whatever it is, and you can kind of just say like more or less it will be $2,000 for travel, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
But you're
and you
right,
just
or you build them afterwards, which is really tricky. Yeah.
yeah, it just doesn't I don't know, for me, it's, like, very awkward to send and yes, you discuss it, but, like, it just for me, it feels like if I had buttoned up everything on my wedding day and
Hmm.
thought I was done and paid all my bills and then got a
Yeah,
bill for $2,000, I would be like, "What?"
I agree. Yeah, totally. I agree. I like to have it all cleaned up before. Yeah.
Yeah, it just, like, feels better and it fosters a better relationship and,
Yeah. But
um
for me, I really love to say I never charge for travel, and I think I might get flack from some photographers for saying this, but for me, like money is not the only value for me. Like I want to be a traveler. That was my dream in my 20s, was to be able to get paid and travel. And so for me to say like, yeah, to be in where was I? Milan, or Mauritius or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, and be there for the week is like also added value, and it's good for my portfolio. So for me, there's like three kinds of value. There's money, but there's also portfolio, there's also connections, and there's also travel. And so all of those things are kind of equally valuable. As long as I'm not going broke, I don't mind traveling, or like spending a little bit and being, I don't know. It all works together for me.
I
It's
feel the
like the
same
embedded
way.
lifestyle.
Yeah, I feel the same way, and you're making that money on one side or the other. It's just whether you're billing directly for it or you're baking it in kind of on the average in the
Sure.
front. And if you lose out on some, like I've definitely lost out on travel before,
Hmm.
but it's still the quality of life is still there. And like I love
Yeah.
I don't feel sour about it when it happens. I just
I think we have to decide at the end of the day, like, do we, what's worth it for us, as a
yes.
photographer, and if it's worth it, then it's worth it, and if it's not, it's not, and you don't need to do anything you don't want to do.
I love that,
Um,
and I really appreciate your transparency because I usually don't ask people about budgeting things too much on this
mm.
because it kinda, like, puts you a little bit on the spot as a vendor, so I
No, I
appreciate
think financial
you.
transparency is so important. I wish there was many more conversations about that. That's all I ever think about, and I'm curious about. How do
I
they do
know.
that? What are they really charging? What do they really make? Yeah,
I know, I know. I think it's so fascinating, and it would be so much easier, I think, to plan a wedding if there was financial transparency or some sort
yeah,
of like standard among
sure,
the industry. I think it would just make it so much easier to actually like plan because if
yeah.
you've never planned a wedding, like you don't know what you're looking for, and all the packages are different, and like all
I
the
know.
pricing's different, and it's like, how do
Well,
you compare
here's
it?
a good one for your couples. Because every time I see these, there's a lot of great Instagram posts out now that'll talk about real wedding budgets and including like luxury and non-luxury. But the trend that I've seen for almost every single wedding, regardless, is like whatever your budget starts at, you could probably increase it. It'll end up being 150% more. If you start at 100,000, it will probably end up being 150,000, or you know what I mean, or 50% more maybe. But if you have a $200,000 budget, it ends up being 350,000. Like I see this over and over again. There's like budget creep for all these things that we think we can do or not do. But so expect it to be a little bit higher, or like set your sights a little lower, so it ends up at the price that you imagine.
Yeah, and prioritize the things that matter the most, and don't
Sure.
and book them in like according to what matters the most
Yeah.
too. Because like if you really care about your photography and you want Philip to be there, then like book him first and then build your budget around that. And if that
Mm.
means you have to maybe compromise on table linens or
Mm.
something that like where you truly don't care.
Hmm.
And you can always, and that's the other thing, like if they're thinking, okay, are the table linens going to like make or break my photos? You can ask Phil and he will
Oh
tell
yeah.
you.
Well, I always say like a good photographer can make anything look amazing. So it's nice to have, better photographer and weaker design. But
That's
yeah,
yeah, I agree. And those are the things you're actually taking home with you. So,
yeah,
um, of course I feel that way because photography is very
sure,
important.
sure. Well, no, I think it's really true, and it's hard to explain that to people. Like if they think like, I don't know, it's really hard to explain what the difference is between a $3,000 photographer and an 8,000 and a 15,000 and a $50,000 photographer.
It
A
is.
lot of it comes down to like personality and reputation and branding, and I don't know, a little bit of everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. What is the coolest location you have ever traveled to for a wedding?
For a wedding.
To photograph a
Yeah,
wedding?
yeah. I mean, honestly, it was just a couple over the years, but I think this year, like being in Mauritius was really like amazing. And I did it for one of my closest friends. So it was, I have to be clear, it was a free wedding. Like they paid for my travel, and I shot the whole thing for them for the week as like their bestie. And I demanded it. There was no other way around it. I would have been so mad if they had chosen someone else. But Mauritius was like so cool, and it was like on this, on the edge of the ocean, and just really lovely, like connected group that bonded over the week. But and we got to see dolphins, and we did like tours around the island. It was just lovely. Um, the other random place that I went was like St. Lucia Island, which is out in the Caribbean, and this guy, the the groom was a teacher, like a history teacher, and he knew about the, I don't know, he just had like some connection to this island in the academic realm, and so it was not like a big island destination, but we got married in this old ruins of a church with like the rooftop was off, and it was just amazing. It was like a really cool spot that was like just wild and out there, like chickens running across the road and cows wandering around the island and stuff like that. It was a really interesting space. So that was St. Lucia.
Wow, that's actually on our list. We're headed to Anguilla on Sunday.
Oh, cool. Nice. That's amazing.
Yeah, we just
Yeah.
got back from Indonesia, Singapore.
Cool. Holy cow. Oh, you're
Yeah,
really, really traveling.
yeah, we bounce around a lot.
And is Anguilla just a vacation or?
Yeah, we're going for vacation. We were supposed to like travel for family holiday things.
Mhm.
Transparency, we're in December, even though this won't come out till January.
Oh yeah.
So we were supposed to travel for family holiday things, and then they were like, "We need more time, so come in January." And we were like, "Okay, so we'll take a trip now, and we'll see you in Mexico in January."
Beautiful. Did you have kids, you said, or no?
No,
Oh, okay, so you're just like free traveling.
yes.
Ah, I love this. How
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, this is why this is such a topic after my own heart
Yeah.
because, we spend so much time traveling every year and one of the things that I also I love
So
it.
so do you take photos when you travel or do you like leave the camera behind?
It depends. There were years, this is such an interesting question. There were
Mhm.
years where I couldn't step from like behind the camera and actually um turn it off. So it would always be like I was in work mode if my camera came with
Yeah.
me. And I have finally kind of stepped beyond that.
Uh-huh.
It took years and years and years. I've been doing this since 2005.
Yeah.
So,
I'm 2009. Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
so you get it. Like, if you take your camera, it can be really easy to just, like, be in, like, "Oh, I'm paying attention to, like, this thing and that thing," and, like,
Yeah.
moving on the fly as opposed to, like, living in the moment for me, and
Yeah.
so now I finally feel like I've gotten back to the place where I can, like, do that and not step on my own moments.
That's nice. Yeah, I always find when I'm traveling, I don't take the camera out too much until I'm like ready. Or I don't know. It needs to be like a very new place, like Morocco, that's like filled. You know what I mean? That I'm like, I might want this on my wall, kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I guess
Yeah,
I'm saying like
same.
I need to be shooting for a purpose. Otherwise, it's just going to
Yes.
be my phone.
Yeah,
Yeah,
same,
yeah.
same. And I won't take it if it's something like, we're gonna be in the water the whole time,
Yeah,
then
yeah.
I'm probably
No
not gonna
point.
take it because then I'm not gonna although I have been thinking about getting an underwater camera.
Okay, cool. Yeah, definitely. Especially if you have a scuba license, which it sounds like you do. Yeah,
I
or
do, yeah.
oh yeah, or at least a good GoPro.
Yeah. I don't know, I have mixed feelings about it because scubaing with people who have GoPros can be a complete disaster,
Uh,
and
okay.
they're very, distracted and, like, like, this one girl was just, like, kicking me the entire time in
Oh
the
my
face,
gosh.
and when you're, like, down 130 feet or whatever, it's, like, not fun to have to keep clearing your mask because somebody keeps
Uh,
kicking you, and then, like, you
yeah, yeah.
back away, and then they, like, follow pace because they yeah. So
I
I have
get it.
mixed feelings on the GoPro.
All right. So maybe we'll see. That's
We'll
funny.
see.
Cool. I can't wait to see pictures from Anguilla.
I'll send you our pictures that we have from the Maldives.
Okay, I'd love it. Yeah, share.
All right. So, final question for you. What are some tips you have for couples to kind of prioritize in the planning process for a destination wedding?
um. Okay, so yeah, I guess like you said, they need to like understand what's most important for them, right? If it's the travel, then it's the travel. If it's the photographer, it's the photographer. I guess I don't really know what the demographic of all of your couples are like. If they're doing more like intimate style weddings on a budget or big like over the top stuff but um I think a couple really needs to, yeah, decide what is very important, what are deal breakers, um, and if they're gonna do this on their own or with family, is like something to understand. Like if your parents are helping you pay for your wedding, then they're gonna have opinions, and so it's sometimes a wedding can get away from you a little bit when you start like adding in the opinions of the world and people on Reddit and your family and your aunt, and so it's important really to know like what this is like maybe key for anybody, not even just destination wedding people, but like why are you getting married is a really important question for couples, because sometimes why you're getting married is like a union of two families, or it's to celebrate love, or it's to have a really great party with all your favorite people, and if you can name, the why of your wedding, like why you're getting married, then you can kind of let all of the other decisions sort of filter down from there. And if why you're getting married in a destination is to have amazing destination photos, then like choosing the right photographer obviously matters a lot. Someone who does that kind of stuff. Does that make sense?
Perfectly
Yeah.
said. I could not agree more. That was amazing. Phillip, I just adore you. I think you're one of the most wonderful, giving,
Yay.
caring people and super talented to boot. So I really appreciate you being here on the
Thank
wedding dish with
you.
me
I
today.
appreciate you. You're a great interviewer.
Well, thank you. I'm just going to have the best rest of the day now.
Yay.
Well, Phillip, where can people find you online?
Yeah, I'm everywhere. Basically, Phillipvn, Phillip, V as a Victor, N as in Nancy. I'm Phillipvn.com, Phillipvn Weddings on Instagram, and if you just type in Phillipvn, you'll find me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And while you are looking up Phillip VN, you can find us at the Wedding Dish Podcast on Instagram and theweddingdishpodcast.com. And we'll have show notes with some pictures from Phillip's recent weddings and
Yay.
all kinds of good stuff, including, the links and everything. So it's super duper easy for you to connect. And thank you everyone for tuning into the Wedding Dish. Give us a follow, rate, and review on your preferred podcast platform. And until we meet again, cheers, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.